views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello and welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet, a weekly program that provides you with the latest information, resources and services, and community efforts taking place locally here in the Bronx. I am Javier E. Gomez, filling in for Kevin Aline, who is off today. Coming up, the doctor is in the house to tell us what everyone should know about the ongoing baby formula shortage in the nation. We talk to Nursery Hospitalist Dr. Denis Traore from Montefiore's Weiler Hospital. After that, the Bronx still faces the highest housing stability threats in New York City, according to a new study. What neighborhoods face the highest housing challenges? We talked to Lucy Block, a senior researcher and expert at the Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development, and Fitzroy Christian from CASA. Then from housing, we move on to business. We tell you the latest happening at Fordham Road, the largest commercial district in the Bronx. We talk to Albert Dalipi, program manager at the Fordham Road BID. And finally, we take you through some of the best highlights of BronxWeek 2022. Stick around, we have a very interesting program today. Open BxRx Tuesday starts now. Welcome to Open BxRx Tuesday on BronxNet. I am Javier E. Gomez, filling in for Kevin Aline, who is off today. Remember to follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at BronxNet TV and also on Facebook at BronxNet Community Television. Everybody is talking about baby formula shortages around the nation. To tell us more about what parents and caregivers should know, we welcome Dr. Denis Traore, nursery hospitalist at Montefiore Weiler Hospital. Welcome, doctor.
Hello, thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Doctor, what are you finding when it comes to these baby formula crisis?
With the prices that have been price gauging that has been going on due to the shortage, so some people are actually hoarding and trying to resell the formula at a higher price.
In terms of the actual situation, is there reason to panic because some people on the street are quite concerned?
Yes, so as you mentioned, it's not only something we see in our Bronx community, it's a nationwide issue. So the most recent data showed that more than 40% of the formula has been out of stock. But it's important for families to know that they should remain calm and should not go into panic mode because there's still options available.
Doctor, we were talking off camera that most of the baby formula shortage conversation has centered around economics and politics, but that very seldomly the matter has been addressed from a healthcare and health perspective. So talking a little bit as it relates to health, what can parents or caregivers do if the formula they need is either not available or if it is being recalled?
Yes, so for most babies, healthy babies, they can actually use store brands or generic formulas since they still go under this very stringent FDA approval. So these are options, but of course, the babies who require specialized formulas, for example, if they have any chronic medical conditions, rare genetic conditions, or allergies. In those cases, it's very important for them to consult with a pediatrician or family physician in order to find appropriate alternatives for these specialized formulas.
Can parents and caregivers dilute the formula to maximize it?
Most definitely not. So infant formula is specifically designed to be very close to breast milk. And so there are specific nutrients that babies require. So we most definitely do not recommend families, caregivers, to dilute the formula because it can lead to electrolyte and nutritional imbalances, which can lead to dehydration, even seizures. and there have been hospitalizations due to diluting of formula.
Doctor, I have seen in the last few days hundreds of baby formula recipes floating around the internet and social media. People giving each other tips: use goat milk, add vitamin powder, add molasses, do this, do that, grind cassava into it, grind noodle into it. But are these safe?
We do not recommend making your own formula. Again, so there are very strict nutrition requirements that are important for the growth and brain development of babies, which formula from the store or breast milk provides. So there, again, it can be quite dangerous for the infant if there are any imbalances in the nutrients.
Doctor, so people can understand why it is probably not a good idea to improvise baby formulas with home ingredients. What is it that baby formula must deliver to a child?
Yes, so there are specific nutrition requirements. For example, the type of protein, the amount of protein, electrolytes like sodium, calcium, that has to be maintained in order for the baby to grow and develop normally.
Now, doctor, just so we can clear the record, are there any circumstances in which it would be a good idea to improvise a formula at home?
Most definitely not. And I also want to emphasize that until 1 year of age, babies should only consume the type of milk that's either human breast milk or formula. So definitely we discourage introducing any goat milk, cow milk, because these again can have severe health consequences for the infant.
Doctor, in your experience at Montefiore, are you finding anything regarding how parents or caregivers are dealing with this shortage, given different ethnic backgrounds? I know some groups have different produces and different cultural approaches to raising a child and feeding a child.
So at Montefiore, we always try to be culturally sensitive and also provide the most scientific and accurate data when we talk to our parents. So we definitely see that there's concern, but we always try to help and support our parents. So we start from the get-go in the nursery. We always encourage any mother that's able to breastfeed, since that's the most nutritional value that babies can receive. But of course, there are some mothers who are unable to breastfeed due to medical conditions, or for the baby's medical conditions, or just because they don't have the time due to their job. So in those cases, of course, we provide formula, and we always want to make sure that they know that we are here to support and help them.
When can babies begin ingesting solid food, and what can that food be?
So we can introduce solid foods such as fruits, vegetables, rice cereal at 4 to 6 months of age, but it also depends on the developmental status of the baby, so that there's good oral motor coordination and also that there's head stability.
Now, doctor, when can babies, if ever, transition into regular cow's milk, fresh milk, as we call it in the stores?
Yes, so we recommend after 1 year of age that we can introduce cow milk.
Is it recommended to be used plain or any specific method?
No, so it can be just regular cow milk.
Now, doctor, this whole situation with baby formulas makes me think about food insecurity. How big of an issue remains food insecurity, at least here in Bronx, in the borough?
Yeah, so in our borough, it's actually, so we actually have the highest rate of low economic status from any of the 5 boroughs. So it's definitely something that we see a lot. Hence at Montefiore, we not only try to address the medical needs of our population, but also the social needs. So we have several screens in our inpatient and outpatient sites that screen for food insecurity, housing insecurity. And so as physicians, we work very close with social workers, local programs and organizations, as well as community healthcare workers in order to address those needs.
What can people do if they are struggling with obtaining baby formulas?
Definitely, the first thing should be to consult a pediatrician or family physician in order to direct them if there are any generic alternatives that meet the unique nutritional needs of their specific infant. And also, if babies are in a special care formula, there are some alternatives that are equivalent and can meet those needs. And most recently, the FDA also stated that in very urgent life-saving situations, they may actually release some of these specialized formulas that were on recall, but it's on a case-by-case basis and requires the doctor's note.
What resources are there at Monty for parents and caregivers?
Yes, so we work with Bronx Healthy Start, which supports parents and caregivers, as well as also the WIC office, which is the specialized nutritional supplemental program for women, infant, and children, with whom we also work very closely with. And there are also several other local resources that we also can direct families in need to.
Thinking beyond baby formulas, doctor, how can you describe a healthy diet for an infant?
Yes, so most definitely for the first 4 months of life, so the newborn period, baby should only consume either formula or breast milk. Thereafter, if they meet all the milestones, we may introduce solids between 4 or 6 months of age, such as fruits, vegetables, rice, cereal, and then we continue. So if babies are feeding solids well and are between 9 and 12 months of age, if there's a need, you can actually increase the amount of solids if you don't have the amount of formula also available in order for your baby still to have all the nutrients and calories that they need in order to grow.
Previously in the segment, you mentioned some short-term conditions of malnutrition or improper nutrition in an infant, but can you tell me a little bit about what could be some long-term consequences of improper nutrition in an infant?
Yes, that actually can have quite drastic consequences. So if there's inadequate amount of calories, certain fatty acids, it can lead to improper brain development and can have long-term consequences with regarding to their development. As well, if they have inadequate amount of calories, they may be underweight and have a slower growth rate as if you provide it normally. And also introducing cow's milk can also affect the GI system as well and can also lead to anemia.
Thank you for that information. Dr. Denis Traore, Nursery Hospitalist at Montefiore Weiler Hospital.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll be right back with Open BxRx Tuesday.
Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently, learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
Hello and welcome back. The Bronx remains the borough with the highest threats to housing stability in all of New York. That is according to a new study by the Association for Neighborhood and Housing Development. To tell us about these findings, what does everything mean, and what can be done about this crisis, let's welcome Lucy Block, a senior researcher and data associate with the association, and Fitzroy Christian from CASA. Welcome, Lucy and Fitzroy.
Thank you for having us, Sue.
Nice to meet you both. What are the most shocking revelations of this study?
For me, it's both shocking and not shocking. I think when we do citywide and neighborhood-specific data analyses like these, we see numbers that come up in the Bronx that are really alarming and at the same time not surprising because they're trends and patterns that have been there for a very long time.
In terms of specificity, what does the study reveal?
So for the Bronx, this year and in many prior years, quite a few of the community districts in the Bronx, basically all of the districts that are west of the Bronx River, excluding Riverdale Fieldston, have some of the highest risks to affordable housing out of all 59 community districts across the city. So this year, for example, Bronx districts 1 through 7 all rank in the top 10 citywide for all of the different risk indicators that we included in the chart.
I know there can be many reasons for that, but what could be some of the causes triggering this?
It really, I think, comes down to centuries and decades of disinvestment, of systemic racism and discrimination that have deprived communities of color of the resources they need for safe, healthy, stable, and vital communities, and to be able to build wealth in those communities. And so that kind of economic and housing system that has been set up to deprive Bronx residents and communities of color of those resources are all of the types of threats that we see showing up in this chart.
What does the study specifically say about Mud Haven, Grand Concourse, and University Heights? We're talking about South and Northwest Bronx.
Yeah, I can share some of the data findings from the chart, and then maybe Fitzroy can talk a little bit about how it is on the ground in the community that he lives and works in. So those districts, we're looking at Bronx Community District 1, which is Mott Haven and Melrose, Bronx District 4, Highbridge, South Concourse, and Bronx 5, University Heights and Fordham. Those districts all have very high rates of rent burden, meaning that tenants are paying a large portion of their income towards rent. They have very low incomes, which we measure against area median income, a benchmark used by the city for affordable housing, or so-called affordable housing. They have extremely high rates of eviction filings. In fact, those rates of eviction filings are very high in all of those districts we've been talking about in the Bronx, that entire area west of the Bronx River. There are also really high numbers of housing code violations, meaning that people are living in poor conditions. They're not getting the repairs they need. Landlords are not fixing problems. There are service outages, unplanned service outages in public housing, in NYCHA buildings. And at the same time, many of those districts, including Bronx Districts 1, 4, and 5, the neighborhoods that you're talking about, are seeing very high increases in residential sale prices, meaning that there's speculation going on, there is investment into these neighborhoods, and developers and landlords see opportunity there, while tenants who are there currently and residents who are there currently are facing abominable and unacceptable housing conditions.
Fitzroy, you live in Mount Eden, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
What is the situation on the ground over there? What do you see?
what I see is a lot of residential buildings being put up where our businesses were. I've seen a lot of people who find that even though supposedly during the rezoning that there would be truly affordable apartments being built and will be available to the residents, we are finding that most of us cannot afford these affordable or these so-called affordable apartments. We are finding that we have to go further to get the basic things we had before. We are losing major businesses. We are finding that the employment situation has not really, or rather the recovery from COVID has not really struck our areas yet. There's still very high unemployment in the double figures in our areas. People are still unemployed. We are seeing where the ERAP assistance from the federal government and from the state had been woefully insufficient, and many of us were not able to benefit from that small amount of money that the federal and state governments invested. And we are now facing evictions at a higher rate than even before the pandemic. We are finding that more and more families are self-evicting because they don't know their rights. They don't know that they could fight back in court and that they themselves can take the landlords to court for the deplorable conditions in which they live. Right? So the numbers that ANHD produced and that you have with you is just indicating why the CASAs of the world exist. The CASAs, the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition here in the Bronx, Mothers on the Move, because those numbers mean that these folks need help, a lot of help. And the only way they're going to get the help is if grassroots organizations like CASA, like Northwest Bronx, who are here on the ground and who work with these folks here and who have spent years developing trust with them, that we need to be able to go out to them and explain to them what their rights are, what ERAP is and how they could benefit from it, how they could go about taking their landlords to court to improve their living conditions, and if the landlord takes them to court, how to use the poor conditions, the lack of services, the lack of heat and hot water in winter, the mice infestation, the roach infestation, how to use all of that as legal defenses so that the courts can order the landlords to do what they have to do, and the tenants do not have to pay all of their rent. They could be rent, they could get an abatement, they could get rent forgiveness, all because the landlords have not maintained the apartments at the level of the city codes, and that the warranty of habitability is being just trampled on. But tenants don't know, and so they live in those conditions, or they move and often to a situation that is worse than the one that they're moving from, and they need to know, and that is where we come in. We need to be funded. We need to get a line in the New York City budget so that we can be funded every year to do the work, to educate the population, to let them know what is available, where the resources are, and how they could get the help they need to begin to live like human beings.
How will the study, Fitzroy, help you to achieve those goals?
Because with these numbers, we can concentrate in specific areas. And if we go to the worst areas that are highlighted by this ANHD study, we can then go to them, go to the apartment buildings, go to the other community groups in those areas and start to organize. We can start tenant education. We can start broad-based community education. What it means when your parks are not being cleaned, when they're not very usable. What does it mean when the schools don't have proper places and greens for the students to play? They have to play on concrete and tar, which are dangerous and unhealthy. We can then begin our organizing work in those communities and then bring it to the attention of the general public, whether through rallies, through press releases, through press conferences, I should say. We could bring it to the attention of the elected officials of those areas, whether they're council members, state electeds or even congressional members say, this is what your community looks like. This is what your community members are going through every day of their lives. You have to do something about it. So those numbers will give us a focus point so we could go right in and say, here is where we're going to do some work, and this is what we're going to be broadcasting to the world, and get some action here and get things changed for these people who have been so negatively affected by the conditions that's almost engineered by the city government.
Lucy,
That's what
I'd like to just, if it's
yes.
okay, I'd love to just add on to what Fitzroy is saying and highlight the importance of groups like CASA, which is one of ANHD's member organizations. So ANHD has 80 member organizations citywide, and there are 46 groups that are funded through an initiative called the Community Housing Preservation Strategies Initiative. And these groups understand the on-the-ground conditions. One of the main purposes of the risk chart is to understand trends and patterns in the many different ways that threats to affordable housing manifests across the city. And so the chart shows us how housing risk shows up in very different ways in very different places, and patterns and concentrations like we see in the Bronx. But groups like CASA on the ground are the ones who understand these conditions, and they can use this data to inform their work. But they're the ones who are responding to the specific problems that they're seeing, whether it's evictions, whether it's a rezoning and land is being bought up all around them and market rate units are being built that local residents can't afford. And so I just want to highlight the importance of there's not enough funding for tenant organizing and for this very specific local work that groups like CASA do incredibly well. And it's just really important that we get that kind of support so that we have an infrastructure of these frontline groups that are strong and sustainable, and that they're not worrying about whether they can pay their organizers year to year. And so I hope the housing risk chart can help highlight just the importance of the on-the-ground work that these groups do.
Lucy, where is this study available and who can access it?
Anyone can access it. It's on our website, anhd.org.
Now, Fitzroy, in terms of home ownership itself, what is the impact of what you see happening on the ground?
I don't have any hard numbers to give you, Javier, but by walking around in my community, I'm seeing where there are tall buildings cutting off the lights to the smaller homeowner buildings, 1 and 2 family, maybe 1-story building that a family may have. We are seeing where there are folks coming around and offering monies to these homeowners to buy them out so that they could use their little spot to add to their the space they want where they're building their high rises already. We are seeing where, as the construction takes place, the increase in rodent infestation, rats, big rats are running all over the place and now gone into people's homes. And these homeowners now have to be thinking, should I stay here? We have put down my roots for the last 30, 35, 40 years, or get out of here. They're seeing where I'm being priced out of my area. Where I used to go to Fordham Road and get a couple of nice things to buy, those stores are gone. Where I used to go to Morales and get some nice nails, some cement to repair my homes, I now have to drive 4 miles away to go to Home Depot, or go to Westchester, go to New Jersey to go to a Lowe's or one of these other stores, right? This is how these people are being impacted.
Thanks, Lucy and Fitzroy, for that information. Sorry we don't have more time. We definitely have to continue this conversation. This is a topic that is not going to go away for a while. Thanks for the work you're doing.
Okay, but if I may just add this, and this is why if anyone walks down to the 167th Street and go on concourse near the housing court, they will always see the court being filled. Because in our area in the Bronx, we have almost 44% of all eviction cases in New York City. 44% of all cases, because this is a new frontier. This is where people are coming back in. This is where the people of color now being pushed out to accommodate a new set of people. And this is why the courts are filled. And this is why we need the ANHD so that they could give us those numbers so we can know what our work will have to be so that those of us who live here can stay in the Bronx.
Thank you, Fitzroy. Very, very
Bronx.
powerful information. We'll be right back.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
Hello and welcome back to Open BxRx Tuesday. Fordham Road is the largest commercial district in the Bronx. To tell us what's happening in the area as the city continues to reopen and what will be happening this summer, we welcome Albert Dalipi, Program Manager at the Fordham Road BID. Hi, Albert.
Hi, Javier. How are you?
Good, Albert. I think there's a little bit of a delay in our connection, but let's get started. How is Fordham Road handling this great comeback story?
Fordham is thriving, Javier, to be honest. You know, we're excited about opening up again. We're excited about, launching some more events over the summer and really letting the community know about some of the needs of the businesses and the consumers in this area and working as a community to kind of meet those needs. So we're excited.
Just so people can understand the importance of Fordham Road for the region and the large scope of what we're talking about, can you tell me what are some of the most recent statistics?
quick summary, the Fordham Road bid is a nonprofit organization that we're dedicated to the beautification, the organization of community events, and the promotion of local businesses on Fordham. And so we really we serve this community here of over 300 businesses. And, so recently we've been doing some studies in the area to find out what are the needs of the businesses and the consumers in this area. And some recent statistics that we've gotten, have been positive. For example, the vacancy rate inside the bid boundaries is 5%, which is lower than the city average. And, despite business having gone down through the pandemic, over 70% of our merchants plan to stay and 17% plan to expand. So Fordham is thriving, and, we're excited to really open up again here.
Do we know, Albert, by any chance, how many jobs the Fordham Road corridor generates, and even how much does it contribute to moving the local and the regional economy?
That's a great question, Javier. For the surveys that we collected, we were more focused on kind of understanding what the needs of the district were, more so than what the district generates in terms of jobs. But I can tell you, Fordham has tens of thousands of commuters and shoppers that come here. We have the fourth largest Metro North station here, the fourth busiest Metro North station. We have over 10 bus lines, multiple subway lines here, and we're the largest bid in the Bronx, and one of the largest, the third largest shopping center in New York City. So I don't have those exact statistics in terms of jobs generated, but Fordham is definitely a center for this community and jobs in the Bronx for sure.
You have mentioned the surveys that the bid has been doing. What is the purpose of these surveys, and who is being surveyed?
So we were awarded a 3-year commercial district revitalization grant from the New York City Small Business Services to conduct a commercial district needs assessment, which is essentially a chance for us to understand what the pulse of the community is and the different stakeholders that are here. So we're running surveys with the different stakeholders that we've identified. So those include property owners, merchants, consumers, and street vendors. So we have surveys for each of those groups, and we've already actually conducted them. So we've collected over 300 consumer surveys, over 200 merchant surveys. All the property owners here we've reached out to, we've heard back from most. And the results, like I said, have been pretty satisfying to us. And we hope that in years 2 and 3 of the grant, now that we have the data, we can actually start working with the community to address some of the concerns that came out of the surveys.
Pretty much when it comes to using the data, what solutions are you going to be thinking about now that you have it?
So one of the things that we want to do is we want to build a coalition of community partners in Fordham. So we don't want the Fordham Road bid to be making all the decisions. One of the things that when we sought out to create this was we want to create a community partnership, and kind of design a new brand where we can involve the community and the businesses that are in Fordham and different organizations that are, that show the variety of this area. So whether it's faith organizations, whether it's health organizations, et cetera, we want to create a kind of coalition where we can meet with the community, let them know what the data says, let them know what the statistics say, and then work with them together to come up with solutions. So whether it's solutions for safety, solutions for, vending, whether it's solutions for a lack of parking, whatever it is that came out of these surveys, we want to really involve the community in letting us know, how we can address these needs.
Albert, some people are saying that retail in America, the notion of retail in America, it's rapidly dying with digital technologies and apps and big box stores. What are your thoughts on that, and how is the Fordham Road bid handling or getting around this emergence of new technologies,
Javier, I
shall say?
Sure, certainly. I'd have to disagree with that. I don't think retail is dying, at least not on Fordham. Our top five businesses that we identified here, clothing and shoe stores, were by far number one on that list. And so, Fordham is really a center for hip hop. It's a center for culture and fashion. And that's something that I think is always going to be there. And I really believe that. And so I think that with the emergence of e-commerce and whatnot, I think our businesses are doing well to adjust to it. But I do think that there's always going to be, a need for people that just want to come out and actually see things on the street and shop. One thing that was interesting that came out of the surveys actually was that, most of the shoppers that come here, they actually don't find deals online. They find it through walking the streets. And so that's something that, Fordham has always had, and we kind of pride ourselves in that.
In terms of the Bronx itself, what is the importance specifically for the Bronx community to buy local?
I think it's extremely important. I think especially in the Bronx, we want to make sure that we support the small businesses. And Fordham again is unique in the sense that we have larger resales here. We have national chain stores, but we also have the small businesses here that have been resilient, and we have some that have been here over 20 years, over 30 years. And so it's important to support the small businesses because as I think all of us can agree that it's really the small businesses that determine the strength of an economy. And so, if we want our economy to be strong, we always have to support the small businesses.
In terms of neighborhood infrastructure, Albert, are there any issues that the bid is looking into?
Yeah, so absolutely. So one of the biggest things that came out of the surveys was the concern of safety, especially in the nighttime versus the daytime. And so one of the things that we've been considering actually is, maybe so we have a sanitation team actually that cleans out the district. We were thinking about potentially extending their hours into nighttime. We were thinking about potentially creating a patrol team, where we can have a security team of people that do kind of street patrol for the bid in the district. That would kind of help some of the safety concerns, And then also we were kind of considering handling some of the vending issues that have come out as well. So working with other organizations that represent street vendors and working with the vendors themselves to see if we can come to an understanding in terms of handling some of the issues that have come out. So for example. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Javier.
There has been a discussion in recent weeks in the city about street vendors. How is that situation being handled at Fordham Road?
Yeah, so as you know, Fordham Road, vending on Fordham is huge. Fordham is always going to be known as a vending place. Whenever people want to come to New York City, they want to buy a hot dog, you want to buy something from a street vendor. Fordham's a spot for that. Our position on street vending is we really want to be in the middle. We feel like there's two extremes out there, and we really want to be in the middle of those two extremes. One extreme being that, there's no regulations for vending at all, where, vendors can set up shop in front of fire hydrants, bus stops, in zones that are not safe, right? So that's one extreme where there's no regulations. And then the other extreme is also, how difficult it is to get a vending license. You can wait a lifetime for one and never receive it. So as the bid, we really want to be in the middle of those two extremes. And we want, we obviously, we want there to be regulation for vending, just like there's regulations for businesses. And we want rules, to be kind of enforced. But at the same time, we don't agree with the concept of how difficult it is to get a license, and so we're really trying to work in between those two extremes. And we really, like I said, we identify the street vendors as a stakeholder in this community. So we want to kind of survey that community, understand what their needs are. So when we work on coming up with solutions, we can consider their concerns as well.
Can you give us a preview about the summer at Fordham Road and maybe the fall 2022?
Yeah, so the summer Fordham's going to be popping. So the summer is going to be popping, as usual. So we have film festivals that we already set up in Bryant Park. Those are going to be Friday, July 15th, August 19th, and Friday, September 9th. That starts at 5 p.m. We also have Fordham Road sidewalk sales throughout the year, twice a month. And then also, so the latest one for that is going to be in Memorial Day weekend. And also the Bronx Night Market is something that is reopened as well. And that's on Fordham Plaza from noon to 7 p.m. And the next one is going to be on May 28th.
Something very interesting about Fordham Road is that it seems to be right in the middle of the borough, and it seemed to be connected to a comprehensive regional landscape of cultural institutions, tourism institutions. Do you see Fordham Road as a vital component of a larger ecosystem?
Absolutely, Javier. And that's one thing that we've been pushing, is that Fordham is more than a commercial district. We really want to highlight those other businesses, those other community organizations, health organizations, faith organizations that are here that a lot of people don't know about, And so one thing that actually came out of the surveys that was a little disappointing to us is that most consumers here don't know of these organizations that are here. So we really find that it's going to be our job to make those organizations known to consumers and to really use those organizations and use their expertise in making some of the decisions that we're going to be making in years 2 and 3 of this grant, to kind of address some of the needs that have came out from these surveys.
How can people stay in the know?
So I invite people to visit our website. We're at fordhamroadbid.org. Follow us on social media, Fordham Road NYC. And, on our website, you'll see there's be a calendar there where we have a calendar of events happening in the district, in the community. And also, we have an open door policy, so feel free to visit us. We're located at 2488 Grand Concourse Avenue in the Wagner building, and we're distributing PPEs to the community. We've been doing that since the pandemic. So if you're in need of masks, if you're in need of, COVID test kits, hand sanitizer, whatever it is, come stop by, come see us.
Thanks, Albert, and remember, everyone, the importance of buying local. We'll be right back. Welcome back. BronxWeek 2022 took place from May 5th through the 15th. BronxNet cameras were there, and we bring you some of the best highlights.
From 70s classics to mainstream hits, the Woodlawn Cemetery was filled with laughter, dance, and surprisingly silence, as Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson hosted a silent disco as a part of the BronxWeek celebration.
Every time she hosts one of these, I like to come because I love music and I like to dance and I like to move.
In a typical party setting, one speaker blares throughout the entire night. But at the silent disco, attendees were treated to a pair of Bluetooth headphones with various music channels to have their own dance party. DJ Shadow was in charge of treated to a pair of Bluetooth headphones with various music channels to have their own dance party. DJ Shadow was in charge of controlling the music and keeping the party going.
You have headsets and you listen to music silently, but everyone's dancing to different music.
We just wanted to mix it up, make sure everybody is included in the experience. You know, the Bronx is a full eclectic place, and we really wanted to just make sure that everybody is included.
The borough president is no stranger to silent discos, as this was one of the main events that she hosted during her time on the city council. Borough President Gibson has hosted several BronxWeek events, from galas to brunches, but the silent disco was important for her to be able to spread health and wellness awareness.
A lot of us gained weight during COVID, and we need a way to burn those calories, so let's dance.
Bronx Week 2022 is the borough president's first Bronx Week, and throughout the week, she has honored a number of community leaders and advocates for their contributions to the borough.
Very excited. It was a lot of work, a lot of labor loved by the Office of the Bronx Borough President, the Bronx Tourism Council, and BOEDC.
Tonight's rain isn't stopping anyone from soaking up the last few days of Bronx Week. Reporting for BronxNet, Brittany Schuyler Aubain.
Congratulations.
Bronx Week 2022 kicked off with these college-bound high school seniors from Mott Hall 5 who began their day here at the Bronx River Houses with this surprise, 50 Chromebook laptops that were handed out by Bronx Borough President Vanessa Gibson and former New York City Schools Chancellor Nisha Porter, now Executive Director of the Bronx Community Foundation. Here is senior Isabel Miralda.
I've actually never been a part of something like this, and we literally just they told us to come here to an event that they were going to raffle off 50 laptops to our school, and then so now apparently we're getting one and that was so cool.
It's so important because one of the things that we know is that the Bronx has been a digital desert for too long, so we want to close the digital divide. It's a priority of the Bronx Community Foundation, and we want to eliminate tech inequities that exist in the borough.
50 desktops were also provided to seniors as well who live right here. Porter also discovered that some of them were headed to college as well.
They need the mobility of a Chromebook to travel with them, to move from class to class with them.
With the pandemic forcing New Yorkers indoors with public events, including Bronx Week, forced to cancel, it became clear the critical need for technology.
We wanted to make sure that we're connecting families to the latest technology and devices. So giving out brand new laptops and giving out brand new desktops is really our effort to make sure that our residents can stay connected.
Once a concern for Miralda, who is headed to New York Technical College after today, no more.
It's really good to know that we're going to have something, for college.
Also super pleased, Omaya Hernandez, who is heading to Howard University.
I'm actually very excited, and I'm also very grateful that the community is able to provide for us, especially coming from the Bronx. We don't really have a lot, people really diminish us with all these stereotypes and things like that, so I really do appreciate that they're investing in us.
And pledging to provide resources and information to all pursuing higher education, she expressed her pride in those gathered here.
These seniors are all college bound. They're going to places like University of Albany, my alma mater, Manhattan College, Iona College, City Tech, Brooklyn College. And it really warms my heart because that's why we do this work, because our young people need to know that they're destined for success.
For a full list of Bronx Week 2022 events, go to ilovethebronx.com. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
In the midst of Bronx Week 2022, the Center for Engaged Learning presents Fordham in the Community, a summit on community development and partnership.
We're here celebrating community. We're coming together after 2 years being isolated with the pandemic. We're here specifically to create partnerships, to build community, and specifically create infrastructure to specifically work together if we go through a pandemic of the extent of COVID as it was, to make sure that we have communication, is infrastructure to be able to communicate and to collaborate.
I think this is deeply important both to the community of the Bronx as well as the Fordham community to get a chance to be able to come together, to build solutions together, and to be really working in collaboration and in partnership. I think this borough is so strong, is so resilient, has so many assets and strengths, so if we're able to work together and bring those together, we can really affect a lot of change.
I think the significance of this event is the recognition in everyone needing each other and understanding that we can all serve each other in some capacity, and the fact that they've now launched this new website that is going to make I think they have 27 organizations right now listed, but the idea is to enroll as many people as possible into being this one hub of a resource in which you could find anything that a Bronxite could be in need of.
Executive Director of Mary Mitchell Family and Youth Center, represented the organization and shared details on what services they provide for the community.
Our primary program is an after-school program for youth between the ages 5 and 12 years old. We also have a summer camp program for the same youth as well. And we do a lot of work around food justice, food access, and healthy eating. So we have programs like a food justice club that has young teens and young adults between the ages of 13 to 24 years old, and they do a lot of work around healthy eating, cooking demos with our younger youth, talking about why it's so important to eat healthy, not eating junk food, and the repercussions that come from having chips and soda and things like that. And then we connect them to our local community gardens. So we're a huge supporter of teaching where our food comes from and understanding like the farm to table aspect. So we do a lot of that with our community gardens, and we're actually starting a hydroponic farm at the center right now. So we have a lot of things going around with food access and food security.
Dr. Misha Porter, who was the first Black female chancellor of the New York City Department of Education, is now the CEO and president of the Bronx Community Foundation.
The Bronx Community Foundation, it's the only community foundation in the Bronx that is dedicated solely to supporting Bronxites, eradicating inequities, and supporting nonprofits, small businesses, and ensuring that the Bronx has a place where we are engaged in giving, in which community members have a part in the decision-making process. What is so important about events like this is we're rebuilding the Bronx with the Bronx by the Bronx, right? And the Bronx was hardest hit by the pandemic because of the situation and the reality in the Bronx pre-pandemic, right? And so it's not by accident that the Bronx was hardest hit. All of us who are Bronxites know if you had asked us 10 years ago if there was a pandemic, who would be hardest hit, we would have said us. And so what happened in the pandemic, though, that was beautiful was Bronxites came together, nonprofits came together, small businesses came together in service of supporting each other and in service of supporting our communities and families. That's what today is about. That's what this event is about. That's what the foundation's about.
This event is a sneak peek into the bright future for the Bronx. Reporting for BronxNet, this is Kyrie Moody.
Amigos, that is the show for today. It has been an honor to be with you. I thank Rebecca Hemick, the general producer of this program, and the entire team at BronxNet for making this show possible. I'll see you in Diálogo Abierto, the Spanish language public affairs program on BronxNet, and we'll see you in the next edition of Open Tuesday when Kevin Aline will be back. Take care.